Hello, 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 everyone. Aradia from the future here to read you the latest crop of Patreon names, because it's been since November that we last read these names off. So I am going to read all the names of our Patreons that have joined since November 24th. I'm sorry if I mangle your name, and thank you all very, very much for being Patreons of the Watt Spoilers podcast. David Green, Chris McIntyre, Jim Dawicki. It's gotta be Dawicki, right? The Other Boot, excellent name. Susanna Montague, Mike Keating, Matthew, Jason Lewis, Lindsay Werner, John Windsor, Nathan Fitzpatrick, Robin Probst, Jor Evenson, Manuk, I'm not sure, Manuk, James Witake, and Michaela Rustand. Whew, I felt like I was doing really good for a while there, and then that was a bunch of feeling awkward. Thank you all so much. Thank you to all the Patreons so much for giving us your support and your listens. It's really wonderful that you're all sticking with us. All right, on to your episode.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
And today we're recording at a different than normal time. Today we're recording at Tuesday at 1 in Pacific time so that Anna can join us from Germany.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for switching the time.
Now, have you been on other episodes, right?
I've been on a tangent episode with Aradia, not on the usual one.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Kelsey.
That was a great episode. Yeah, definitely. Well, and we have to get you back in real life at some point.
Yes, I would like to do that. But yeah, who knows? I was supposed to come last autumn.
Yeah, well, but World had other plans for us. But we're making plans again for this autumn.
What is time?
Well, did you guys have anything else to say before we dug into chapter 43?
Not really.
Yeah, my usual little summary of what happens in this chapter is that the only dark friend I can find is Varen, and she's not really a dark friend. So this is a remarkably dark friend free episode.
I wanted to say they managed to send a whole embassy. What gives Black Aja in Salidar? They fucked that up.
Yeah, seriously. So this is a lot of Aes Sedai and a very low quantity of dark friend fuckery, which is pretty trippy.
Yeah, the whole Rebel Hall, or the Rebel Alliance. God, the Rebel Alliance. The Rebel
Fits.
Hall. Yeah, it does fit a little bit. The Rebel Alliance Hall sent the embassy. The embassy, that's the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Without dark friends. And that does seem, it's something we've talked about a couple of times. It just seems to be dark friend incompetence, as best as I can tell. It seems like Shuriam, who was picking them, would have sent a dark friend along, but I guess not.
I think I looked up several times before if Kyron Stang is Black Aja, because her name sounds Black Aja to me. She's not. She gets murdered by a Forsaken.
Right?
But somehow her name just screams evil to me.
I went through that too.
Maybe because she's a Karen? I don't know.
This is what I was telling you before we kicked on recording, that I was really wrong about something really obvious in this chapter, and it was assuming that the POV switch at the end is to a bunch of Dark Friend sisters from the Tower Embassy. And then I bothered to do 2 seconds of Googling on Watt Wiki and was like, why would I think that? That's not true. These are all from Salidar.
How would they get to Camelin?
Yeah, and they're two of them are blue. It's just, how did I miss that?
I mean, the Tower people do the exact same thing in Kyrian, right?
Yes.
They parallel each other very nicely. But these ones, no. I also looked it up. Especially, is any of them black? No. I mean, Varen, but
yeah, she's special.
It's Varen. It's a special case.
Chapter 43, The Crown of Roses, and the symbol is the symbol of Andor, the Lion of Andor. Morana's hired coach swayed its slow way through the densely packed streets toward the Crown of Roses. Outwardly, she was calm, at least a dark-haired woman with cool, hazel eyes, slim-fingered hands folded peacefully on her pale gray silk skirts. Inside, she was not so serene. 38 years ago, she'd been in place by chance to negotiate a treaty between Erodomon and Terabon that was supposed to put an end to the squabbling over Almuth Plain. With Damani and Terabonners dodging at every turn, and 3 times nearly starting a war in the middle of the exchange, and all while maintaining smiling faces of utter goodwill. By the time the signatures were dry, she felt as if she'd been rolled over rough hills in a barrel full of splinters. And after that, the treaty turned out to be worth considerably less than the wax and ribbons for its seals. She hoped what she had begun this afternoon at the royal palace ended better. It had to. But inside, she felt as though she had just climbed out of another barrel. Min was sitting back with her eyes closed. The young woman seemed to take catnaps at any time and Aes Sedai was not actually speaking to her. The other 2 sisters in the coach occasionally shot quick glances at the girl. Cyanid, cool and reserved in a brocaded green. Masuri, slim and merry-eyed in brown embroidered, flowering vines around them. They had all dressed formally, in shawls and Aja colors.
That's basically everyone.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, so the treaty between Erodomon and Terabon, obviously they just keep fighting over the Almuth Plain.
Yeah, it's possibly...
That sounds like a peace in the Middle East kind of situation.
That's what I wanted to say. It's like being a 5-star diplomat, whatever, and then you have to secure peace in the Middle East, and somehow your whole career shatters because those fuckers won't behave.
I think a better analogy is like Pakistan and India fighting over, what's the valley called?
Kashmir?
Kashmir, yes, thank you.
Yes.
That it's this like plain that they're both 2 powerful countries are fighting over, and sort of an area and stuff like that causes like a permanent disagreement between them that they both claim that they have access to. I guess Palestine works as well.
Yeah, it's an intractable situation, and the more you pile onto the negotiations and the more you put hype into it, the more it's just meaningless bells and whistles.
And like you can get people to agree to things on paper, but if they don't do them in practice, you know, that is probably the biggest problem with the Greys, is lack of enforcement of their treaties.
Probably decades or centuries of conflicts which you can't resolve, and nobody possibly even knows what they were fighting about in the first place.
Right.
I think it really is the problem that the Piece of the Dragon ends up solving with the Aiel, right? This idea that, like, sure, these Aiel can, or these Aes Sedai can be here negotiating all they want, but if you don't have a police force, if you don't have an enforcement group, then it's all going to fall apart as soon as you walk away.
Yeah. I'm so curious to know if it works.
I'm not very sure about the dragon piece. I don't think that lasts a hot
Yeah,
minute.
exactly. Like,
it's a continent. No.
it's a good idea on paper, but like, I would love to see how RJ thinks that's actually going to work.
It's a nice idea.
I always think it's a good idea. I mean, I know we see in Avienda's future vision that it doesn't work out, but, you know, I think with the constant feedback from the Aiel visions of the future, you could actually maintain something like that.
In Avienda's visions, they weren't included in the Dragon's Piece. And that's why her and Perrin tag teamed the change.
Exactly. Right.
So we really don't know. We just know that not including them definitely won't work. But whether the way they get included actually works or not is a very, like, hand-wavy off into the sunset sort of rate of.
Yeah. I mean, if one thing Jordan doesn't do is say, this is the end of the story, the wheel keeps turning, and it's going to go around again, and there is no, like, final, finished, done piece.
Avienda's visions are not like an epilogue that shows you how it goes. They're just a possibility, and fascinating. I mean, I love those. Super depressing.
Yeah, for sure.
What is it? The last battle done, but the world not done with battle?
Yeah, that's Nicola.
And that to me is very much like, yeah, the Dragon's Piece might be a tool, but it's not going to bring an end of all war. At least it's not going to bring around another Age of Legends tomorrow.
No.
Maybe eventually that sort of progress does happen and leads to something like that, but
I think that Almuth Plain is under Seanchan control after the treaty, and yeah, I mean, they know how to consolidate a continent.
Yeah, Rand lets them keep everything that they've consolidated because they're so solid about what they claim, right? They only claim what they can control, so he lets them keep it. And it sucks.
That's my understanding, yeah. It's part of the Dragon's Peace. You're limited at your current borders.
I think it's fascinating to have a little insight in how the Grey Aja works. I mean, she only thinks about her failure, but she says it's her only failure. So, and the woman is like over 100 years old, so supposedly she's done a lot of those treaties and they worked. And that's what I really like about the Grey Aja. They actually do their job in the world. They're basically the only ones who do.
Yeah.
I mean, the Blues do
That's
too,
really
but
fair.
they just do their own thing and nobody knows what they're doing. The Greys are actually the ones that you can call up if you have a problem and they come and they help you. They probably get something out of it for themselves, true, but they do their job and I like it.
Yeah, and they do the kind of job where the better they do their job, the less you notice, right? Because a war didn't happen, and a war not happening is much less flamboyant than a war happening.
I was going to say, based on the number of wars we see in Randland, not sure they're doing the job all that well.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Is how many wars would there be if they weren't doing their jobs? You'd never know because they did their jobs.
Also, I mean, we don't have like any crazy kings, queens, heads of states, whatever, running around doing atrocious things as far as we know, right? And I think that might also be the Grey Aja doing their job because they're like advisors and stuff, and maybe they cut in if somebody, or they just prevent people from coming into power. I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that the nations with the worst offenders, the nations with the worst nobles and the worst offenders tend to be the nations who are most antagonistic to Aes Sedai, like Tyr. And the ones that are the most open about embracing Aes Sedai advisors, like the Borderlands, are way more grounded and rational and have a much better, like, leadership morality.
Yeah, well, the Borderlands have the age-old excuse of external foes helping you get your shit together.
Right. There's a lot going on there, but, like, I feel like the more antagonistic towards Aes Sedai a nation is...
They're never bored. I think the Kyrianen get bored very easily, and that's why there's constantly stuff going on there.
What is the lowest stakes power struggles are always the most, like, evil? You know, like local school board elections are just, like, evil and devious because, like, there's not a lot of power there. There's not a lot to go on, you know?
What's this thing you have in America with homeowners associations or something?
Oh, HOAs, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories.
I heard those are...
They're also pretty rare, I think.
I think they're just rare where we live.
Oh.
Country bumpkin.
I think the more money you have, the more people want to regulate how your lawn looks or something.
Oh, yeah, there is that. I can't afford a place that has an HOA.
Yeah, we don't live in... Yeah.
Yeah,
we
and you can't
matters.
decide. I mean, Aradia now you can, but nobody cares about your house, which is how you like it, I suppose.
Right. I don't live in a neighborhood. That was a very deliberate choice.
Yeah, it's like the fenced off suburbia type spaces that are just like...
and gated communities.
Yeah. What the hell's that? Uh-huh.
Yeah, that sort of nonsense is... I've heard horror stories about it, but I don't have much contact with it. But it exists out here. It's just, Seth, you and I would never want to be associated with such.
Yeah, so. I think some people just end up getting sucked into them.
Yeah.
Tangent is us away.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of weirdness going on with buying into certain areas with homeowners associations, but they're basically like institutions of white supremacy, so I just write them all off and don't pay attention to the fine details.
I wasn't even sure, like, how are they legal? How do they force you to, like, pay the money and then have some regulation over your private property? I don't understand that. Like, I haven't looked into it, but it seems absolutely something that shouldn't be legal in the U.S. But
it seems very weird.
I don't know.
You sign the agreement when you buy your home, he says in this.
Do you have to sign the agreement when you buy your home, though? Is that like...
It's a racket for Karens.
It is.
I like that phrasing, yes.
Like, how do they force you to sign an HOA when you buy your house? Why is that part of the house buying process? I don't understand that.
They provide maintenance on certain things?
Yeah, I think they just send a group of Karens over who go like, those are nice shutters you have. Would be a shame if they weren't the right color and burnt down.
Yeah, it does really seem like a protection racket. It'd be the same shame if we called the police on you and they, like, shot your house up, you know?
Right, but if you're the kind of person who's really nosy about your neighbors and will, like, you know, call them up if their lawn gets too shaggy, then you can, you know, congregate with fellow people like that, right? And then you can all go around nitpicking each other's, like, awesomeness. and just be like the scary city in A Wrinkle in Time with the brain at the middle.
I love that we all have no idea what we're talking about, but we have strong opinions.
Very strong opinions.
I live in an apartment building that's I don't know how it's called. It's like a society you buy into, and then you can I don't know the English term. But so they can obviously regulate some stuff. And a while ago we got a flag which was for some local election, which is an anti-Nazi flag that people were supposed to hang in their windows. And I was like, I wonder if I hang that outside the house, if they have anything against it. I just, I'll do it. And then I saw, the office building they have across the street has one too. So I think I'm fine.
Nice.
Good. What I was talking about here is a housing cooperative.
All right, so as long as we're clear that, as far as we can tell, HOAs are a racket for racism and rich people to keep poor people out of their spaces.
Sure, I have no idea I brought them up, and sure.
I forget why we brought them up too.
Because of the smaller the conflict scope is, the fiercer it gets.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. That was my point. Anyway, so that point it being that we just went off, yeah.
The last part you read was about Min, and I don't think there's much there apart from the fact that she doesn't nap. She just doesn't want to see all the images.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what that's about. She's like, stop with the flickering pictures.
They don't know she can do that, right?
Correct. I think
Swan knows.
Swan knows.
And
but
the wise
Swan
ones
has kept the secret.
And the wise ones know.
Yeah, and
Friend
I
and
would
company.
bet that Varen knows.
Varen knows.
I think Varen knows. Varen knows. We know that Varen knows because Varen. But yeah, I think that all of the Aes Sedai have kept that confidence so it hasn't spread to the embassy at large.
No, I think Swan knows, and Swan, as we know, is not telling people stuff that she doesn't think they need to know. So,
especially not something that helped her get through the dark time between being stripped of stolen staff and getting restored to Aes Sedai. Something that was helping her get through that period is definitely not something she's going to share.
Yeah, and before that, she very decidedly didn't tell people. She didn't want people to know who Min was when they were in the tower together.
It's actually interesting. We don't see Min and Suan being all that close. Like, despite traveling together for a very long time, they really just don't like each other very much.
Yeah, what's with that? Why does Min go out for her so much?
I mean, this must have been so bad for Min. There were 3 super depressed people with her.
Right?
Awesome.
She has major strength of will just to keep going with that much dragging.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Min and Swan have a very, like, personally antagonistic but professionally respectful relationship.
Yes, I think
or something.
So
yeah, it's weird. But they respect each other enough to keep their secrets, and that's what counts, especially in this story.
So we get Myrna noticing the obvious fact that Min is head over heels for Rand, and being like, well, aside from whether Min had broken competence.
And the way she says it is so lovingly, in a way. It's like, yeah. I remember that. She's a goner.
Yeah, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? You're screwed. R.I.P.
Moving on, she's not going to be useful anymore.
Right, she's compromised, and that's just what it is.
I just love that acceptance and moving on, being like, well, she's head over heels. Maya's just going to have to be careful what we say around her from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Which they don't.
No, they're not very good about it. But I think she's also very good at hiding.
Because they think she sleeps.
Yeah, she's good at fading into the background and being taken for granted.
Right. That's the other reason she closes her eyes all the time.
Yeah, no, and she befriends the warders, which is super smart.
Mm-hmm.
That's where she gets her stuff.
And also, she's not a channeler, so she's not important, right?
Yep. So easy to overlook, but like that does not change how intelligent and driven she is. Just doesn't.
Yeah, and the warders, they probably know, but they indulge her. They think she's cute.
She brings out her knife skills and they're like, oh, that's adorable.
Right.
Probably helps them with the horses or something, and well, then she's in.
Yeah.
Good hustle.
Min is the ultimate horse girl.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Serious tomboy horse
including
girl,
the boots and pants. I mean, it's all there.
That's partially why she wears them, is that so she can ride horses easily.
Although the heels would be dangerous with stirrups, just saying. Not a good idea.
Well, she talks about having heeled boots, but aren't cowboy boots technically heeled boots? Like the heel helps you put your foot in the stirrup?
It depends. Yeah, but cowboy boots' heels are cut in a very specific way, so you don't get stuck in the stirrup. Who knows? I think hers are higher though, because they have an effect on how she walks in her butt, which means that she's basically wearing high heels.
But I always imagine that they started off as cowboy boots with a heel like that from riding, and then she just like adapted them.
One day she got mud stuck under the heels and realized, ooh, my butt looks delicious in this.
I mean, she invents so many other fashions. Why not?
Yeah, jeans and boots.
But I wanted to read this to sort of show how far Rand had come from the country bumpkin that Moraine sees him as to now. Now she felt fear, and she did not like it. Everything could still go well. Nothing truly disastrous had happened, but Althor himself turned her knees to water.
I mean, he wasn't nice to them.
No, but that's a defining characteristic for her for like most of the rest of this series, really, is she keeps trying to hold it together and failing miserably. Like that's kind of what Morana does for several books.
I really like her.
Yeah, I'm noting. And she ends up losing all of her power, right?
Yep. Yeah, she eventually ends up like shouting at people and just ends up at the bottom of the pecking order. Yeah, I think Perrin like has a bunch of insight into that from like the smells of the Aes Sedai drama, where like she's a super like put upon like ex-alpha wolf in the pack or something like that, and she's stressed. This is the beginning of her really falling apart.
Right. Isn't there a point where Rand is like, "Oh, you'll take your orders from her now," and everyone's shocked because like he's like, "Well, she started giving the orders."
Right, and everyone's like, but can't you tell that she's lost favor?
Lost,
and he's like, well, I've just restored it, so deal.
Exactly.
Is that when she is sent to the Seafolk to negotiate the Coromorph?
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like, you're a Grey, you're supposed to be working for me, go deal with that.
Yeah, and I mean, she has a good track record, it seems, so.
Yeah, and then she yells at him, and it totally slaps him into awareness.
Yeah, it was super unfair because he went in there, did his Ta'Veren thing, made everyone say stuff they didn't want to, then left, and she had to pick up the pieces. That was bound to be a complete disaster. No chance for anyone there.
Yeah, her voice like going up, and then she ends with like, chew on that, my Lord Dragon.
I'm very defensive of her. I realize that's because I'm the Grey here, and we don't have that many of those.
Again, I would say the other thing, the fact that she walked in there with such an advantage about, like, they had said things they didn't want to say, they had given up so much, and then Rand left, she should have been able to use those things to nail him to a fucking wall. And the fact that she completely failed is, in my opinion, a huge failure. She absolutely had an advantage. Huge advantage.
I don't think she failed. I think she got a really good treaty.
I don't think there was that much that could have been done with those people. And I use that deliberately about the Seafolk because I hate them.
I think that she got a really decent deal because it mostly let Rand off the hook for the remainder of the time until the last battle. She managed to mostly kick his obligations down the road.
Yeah, mostly she screwed over the Aes Sedai, right?
Yeah, exactly. She sacrificed her institution for the dragon to keep the Seafolk out of his hair. I think that's pretty awesome.
And he didn't even, like, obey his part of the freaking treaty at all.
Of course he didn't.
So he didn't do like that whole like being summoned twice a year, and it's like, yeah, well, except there's like 3 weeks before the last battle, so
yeah, which is why I think that she got a really good bargain out of it, because he was able to just be like, nope, hasn't been 2 years yet.
Right. Yeah, all right, fair.
But what I really appreciate about what you read about her remembering the meeting with Rand is that we see the same scene from two different sides, which is always awesome.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She freaks out about the Black Tower, about Mazryn Taim, and I mean, that's all super fair. She sees the problems quite clearly. So you wanted to talk about who's with her?
Just that Seonid and Masuri are like the two that go with Perrin for like all of the long Perrin chapters. I always think of them as Perrin's Aes Sedai, but here they are getting split off into Perrin's party because they've sent a bunch of the other embassy people to Caemlyn, right? They kind of split the party, so to speak. And so it's just Morana and those two, and then Varen and Alana. I don't know. It's just setting us up for a lot of interesting splits after Jemai's Wells.
Yeah, these two embassies are the source of a lot of the various Aes Sedai who end up going off and doing other things. Like these sort of two groups of like 13 Aes Sedai become Rands essentially. The two from Camelin.
Yeah, because they all end up at Dumai's Wells, and they are all the ones that Min sees in Rand's hand.
Yep. All the ones that Varen compels.
Yeah. In her own way. They'll serve you in their own way.
This is so unhelpful. It would have been better if she hadn't seen anything, because it means something entirely different for every one of them, and for some of them it means that they want to kill him. So, come on.
Right?
Super weird.
The Black Ajah sister serving him by like, oh, you have to make to the last battle so the Dark One can kill you. It's like, oh, thanks, I guess? Like, I trust you still, but...
Min specifically looks at them, and this is what she gets from it. And you would think that she would maybe get something else from someone who wants him to die horribly.
Yeah, but, it's the pattern giving him what he needs in a lot of ways. I've always thought of Min as, like, the pattern being like, hey, I gotta talk to you, buddy.
Right.
She's the spokesperson.
Right.
She's the Metatron.
Totally. She, if any, Shadar Haran is the Dark One's avatar, Rand is the Creator's avatar, and Min is the Pattern's avatar, as far as I'm concerned.
I love that.
I am the Metatron. Keith mentions that maybe she needed to say that so Rand didn't send them to time or straight up kill them or something.
Right.
That's a fair point.
And then they get turned or killed or whatever.
More Dreadlords.
Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah, that would have led to Perrin being a bit angry with Rand as well.
Yeah.
Because that was always his issue.
Well, he was anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe they would have been less faking it and more actually arguing if he'd been actually sent them off to be killed or something like that, or executed or imprisoned.
Can we talk about this whole part about who has precedence between the Aes Sedai, because that's a big thing that she thinks about who's stronger and who's been accepted longer and who's older. And are we expected to believe that every Aes Sedai knows that of every other sister all the time?
I have a hard time with that.
But there's only like 1,000 Aes Sedai.
I mean, they feel their strength. That's fine. But she explicitly says that everybody knows. If they know nothing else, they know how long they've been novices.
Yeah, I don't see how it's relevant, and I don't see why anyone would know that or care to memorize that.
Yeah. Also weird way of putting pressure on people completing their studies faster than they should.
Well, they don't tell the novices about that. That's the thing, is the novices have no idea that precedence is set on how long you're a novice or an accepted.
And that's even worse. Think about you're just a slacker. I mean, some of them are young and they don't care, and they think, hey, being an accepted is quite the nice deal. I don't want to do this. And then later they realize, okay, that means that nobody will ever listen to me.
Yeah. And then, think also about, the level of, elitism and ivory towerness in that. Oh, you don't have a third PhD? Well, I guess I'm not going to listen to you.
Gee, it's almost like they live in an ivory tower or something.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with the fact how capable you are for the task that is at hand. No. You're one smidgen stronger than me, so I have to listen. No, I don't know.
Everyone learns at different speeds. Everyone learns in different ways. This is a ridiculous thing to measure your dick by. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And being strong in the power.
Ugh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about Grey Aja, who basically don't need the power at all for anything, except for...
Right?
In case of emergency, smash head, but you have a warder for that.
Yeah, their entire Aja is not devoted to a use of the power. The yellow, entirely about power, right? It's entirely about the one power. The gray, it's entirely about your words.
Fair, absolutely. But again, there are people who are weak and can do awesome stuff. So
for sure. I was just tripping out something, realizing that the gray doesn't need the power. The power is almost a hindrance in negotiation, because if you can make people hear something other than what you said or whatever, you'd almost want to be I promise not to channel during these proceedings, right?
Yeah. And because they talked about it, I looked up the strength of everyone in this embassy today. And they're remarkably close. Most of them are at 17, 2 at 16, 2 at 18. So I think...
That might have had more to do with their selection than anything else.
Yeah, but if they're always so aware, everybody knows this instinctively. Who put this together?
Yeah, just a Shameo.
A group where the hierarchy is unclear.
So, you know how I want to go a little not off topic, but sideways on this one. We've talked about how embracing the power for men and women is different, and how with men, and it very much feels like orgasming. This whole, like, you have, as women, you have to accept it. With men, you have to fight it. Like, there's a certain analogy there.
You have to fight your orgasm.
I mean, there's a certain amount of, like, you know what I'm trying to say. It's something. It's a conversation we had before. The point I wanted to make, I wanted to draw another sort of similarity in that for women, you can very much see breast size. It's extremely obvious. You come near somebody, you absolutely know what it is. For men, dick size is hidden. And it's not until they show you that you're actually aware how much power they have. And so this whole, like, the fact that women can sense each other's power level is very much that women... I see this sort of hierarchy as women, like, a public, like, looking at each other's breasts. And it's something you're aware of, even if it's something that you don't necessarily actively think about. You are aware of how big other women's breasts are. Whereas men, in no way in our daily lives do we compare dick sizes, because there's no way for us to even know.
Okay, Seth, how do showers and growers figure into this?
In bed. Let's see. That would be someone like who has raw power but doesn't really know how to use it, right? You know, versus like someone who, like Andral, has only a little itty bitty power, but it's not how much power he's got; it's how he uses it that matters.
So he's a grower.
Yes, he's a grower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas Rand's definitely a shower.
Always thought that about him. Him. So Andral is yep.
I hate and agree with that.
Yeah, because Jordan, from how he writes, probably thinks that women compare their breast sizes every time they meet.
Right, because everything happens with respect to the breast.
Because you think about your breasts constantly, obviously.
Yeah.
When you
it's
cross
literally...
your arms and stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's time to think about anything else in the day, really. It takes up so much time.
Brian, I don't, unless I have to run down some stairs. Then I do.
Yeah, stairs are rather the devil at certain speeds.
For certain people.
Yeah, it's kind of like with horses, like how like they're going along and then they have this like really bouncy trot in between a walk and a gallop. Like there's a harmonic frequency on stairs that's just the worst.
I immediately thought you meant horses running downstairs. Like, what? What are you doing on your land out there?
Yeah, I have no. We do have horses out here, but they do run around, but
I've seen them.
Not up and down the stairs.
But you don't have stairs.
No, we have steps on and off of the porch, and we firmly discourage the horses from making use of them.
Isn't there something about cows being able to go upstairs but not downstairs? Am I making that up?
I've never heard that.
I remember this parable, I think, about a donkey and a tower, or maybe that's just Pratchett. I confuse World and Pratchett a lot.
Oh, no, that is the internet is telling me that is a common myth that people believe. So cows totally can walk downstairs, but it is a common myth.
Well, they are stopped by like just basic, like cattle grates are really simple technology that work quite well at keeping cattle from going places. And
Well, apparently they just don't like it, yeah.
Unless they're determined, then they just...
Well, right.
Once they're like in a herd rush, they don't care. But yeah, I mean, you can confuse a cat by drawing a line on the floor, so...
That's what they want. The cows want us to think they can't go downstairs.
They're actually farming us. That's how that works.
Yeah, they're working with the cats to take over.
That checks out.
I've seen those rumble gates at like if you have a cattle fenced in and you have a gateway that you drive over, instead of putting a fence there that you have to open and close, they just put in like bars with gaps in between them.
Cattle gate. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Cattle gate.
Yeah, because only cattle won't walk on it, like humans and cars are just fine, so it's only a gate for them.
Yeah, they're a little bit rounded. They're usually made like of pipes or something.
Yeah, like if it's like a couple inches around, and then there's like an inch or two gap, or a couple inch gap between them.
Yeah.
So they're more common than I thought they were then.
Yeah, my family has a house in Ireland where it go a lot, and we have one of those at the end of a driveway.
Yeah, my warder's grandmother has some on her property, yeah.
I've face planted several times in my life because
Maybe you shouldn't walk on them either.
Yeah, because it's, well, I mean, it's Ireland, so it's usually rainy and muddy, right?
Right.
So, slippery.
Yeah, Ireland and Portland share a lot of the weather patterns, actually. We're at about the same latitude. We both are near ocean currents going in from south to north.
Yeah, the hills are just equally just covered in greenery. It's just, it's that shade of green. You get a lot of rain.
It's Emerald City, sort of.
Is it
yeah.
is it the same in Portland as well, then, that if it doesn't rain for like a week, everything turns brown immediately?
Yeah, well, the grass takes like a month, but yeah. In the summer, everything is just amber colored. Mm-hmm. Unless you're an asshole and you water your lawn, which don't do that because it's bullshit. But not a fan of lawns.
Yeah, it's a waste of water. Lawns in Portland are extremely artificial because there's just not enough sun for grass to really like take hold and do well. So you have to like fight the moss and fight the other native plants to get your lawn. It's terrible. It's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do it.
Right, and then you cut it over and over again, which makes the roots spread out more and more. You end up with a surface that's very nearly as impermeable as concrete and is completely ecologically dead as far as like soil microbes or anything that makes soil awesome. It's just, it's artificial nonsense.
But it looks like a carpet. Yay!
Yeah, it looks like we're all 17th century aristocrats in France. Do you still dress with lead paint on your face and a fake wig? No? Then why does your lawn look like you do? To paraphrase a meme that I've seen online.
Oh, I'm supposed to take the lead out of my face?
Yes, actually.
I think, Murto, I think in Ireland, grass grows pretty well on its own. It's everywhere.
Oh yeah, grass grows really well here, just not lawns in their beautiful manicured shit.
Okay,
and like native grasses versus
yeah,
whatever that stuff is they put in yards that's not really grass. It's just like blades of death.
Okay.
Yeah, the monocrop nonsense that's all soaked in herbicides and fertilizers versus, the field I have out here that is full of stuff.
Grass with clovers and dandelions is so much prettier anyway.
Right.
No, dandelions are actually the devil, and they broadcast inverse Wi-Fi that ruins civilization, and that's why we have to eradicate them. It's science.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. But I like to pluck them and blow on them.
Dandelions are so cute, and they'll grow anywhere. They're so great.
They are definitely a weed,
dandelions is not fair. What is a weed?
I know.
A weed is defined by an HOA.
Yeah, you can eat it. That's true.
And you can eat them.
And the bees like them.
And they're medicinal. And bees like them. They're really good for pollinators. And they're so sunny.
I'm so happy that I made it because I just took a leap of faith there because I had no idea if it's dandelions or dandelions. I had no idea.
You guessed correctly.
You got it right.
Dandelion sounds more like a flower, though.
I will agree with that, actually. It's a much more epic sounding name.
It just means tooth of lion, so, which is the German name as well.
Oh, nice.
We just don't do the fancy.
I was just imagining a really dapper lion,
A dandy lion.
Yeah, a dandy lion. Like, that's always where my mind goes. He's got, exactly, a top hat, monocle, cane, gloves, and, a serious upper crust English attitude. Mm-hmm. Is mane permed, totally.
He would invite a gazelle over for dinner and, serve a nice meal in front of it and then eat it when she wasn't looking.
Yeah, I feel like up until that last line, you're almost describing, a children's book I had when I was really little. But I don't think that there was murder at the end because it was a children's book.
Because it wasn't a German children's book.
Right, I was going to say.
Yes, exactly. It was a book written for soft little babies that were about to get helicopter parented in the 90s.
Isn't that...
Not that I was helicopter parented, but the books were written for that, so...
What was that DreamWorks movie with the bunny cop?
Zootopia?
Yes, thank you.
That's a really good one. I
feel like you have dandelions in there, really.
There are so many social issues get brought up in this movie.
I don't know if I've ever seen
this
it.
This is you should watch that.
I might.
It's one of those that's for children, and it's fine for children, and if you watch it as a grown-up, there's a whole other story going on in there.
Okay, cool, yeah. Sometimes I do want to watch children's movies, so yeah, sweet.
Also, they have a whole city metropolis with different quarters for the different kinds of animals, and they just show them very briefly, and you want to stop, freeze frame it, and look at it.
Okay.
And you have a very much this predator versus prey set up. Predators have figured out how to eat like non-intelligent animals, but occasionally it's still there, and there's this power dynamic, and it's a very interesting way of looking at minorities in a society and how they don't have power. Yeah.
As Nin says, racism, sexism, slothism.
Okay.
Aradia, the sloths work the DMV. Yes. It's a good movie.
I'm starting to feel like I've
movie.
seen memes of this so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, of the sloth, yeah.
I'm like, there's suddenly like a GIF reel in my head being like, I know this movie.
There's this GIF, there's this sloth laughing really, really slowly, which you've probably seen a million times.
Okay. All right. This is great.
Brilliant.
This is great.
It's definitely a movie worth watching to identify where all the memes come from. Because
okay, gotcha. Nice.
You'll recognize it. So let's get back to the chapter.
Yeah, that would.
I'm only on tangent episodes. Yeah,
that's true.
There's a reason for that.
Want to shout at Alana a little bit more?
Yes, please. I think this is a good time to shout at Alana.
Yeah.
Fuck Alana. I'm super mad at Mirana at this incident, or at all of them, because she sees the issue, she understands the issue, she's mad at the issue, and it's not even the I would have held my nose whatever thing, okay, but it's the fact that while she sees how wrong it is, now it's done, she just accepts it. And she gives credence to the whole Aes Sedai are jealous of their warders. Well, he's not supposed to be her warder. It's like, you got raped, you're pregnant, and now the guy gets paternity rights. Shit. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like,
I found that very frustrating.
Why? I mean, if she had said in her head, in this special case, okay, because he's the Dragon Reborn, blah, 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 I would still have disliked it. But it feels like it's a usual thing that, yeah, it's wrong to bond a warder against their will, but once you've done it, he's yours to do with as you please. Have fun.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
It's really not a great approach to anything at all. It's like a possession is 9/10 of the law kind of thing. It's not right. It's really frustrating to see her be like, wow, that was super immoral of you. But moving on, like, ugh. And then in answer to your question, there is a way to unbond a warder. There absolutely is. And she does it as she's dying during the last battle.
I suppose it's super painful or whatever.
No.
And they don't like it.
They just don't like it because they're possessive and arrogant. I mean, Elias Aes Sedai never unbonded him. She totally could have. But yeah, no, it doesn't hurt. Taking off the oaths hurts. But I do not think that there's anything about the warder bond going on or off that is painful.
Maybe it's a loss thing, like when they die.
That is one of my disagreements with Brandon Sanderson. Like the fact that we never ever hear about a simple unbonding that ever occurs until Alana unbonds Rand is just one of those things that like feels like it comes out of the blue. Like unbonding, it feels like it shouldn't be possible, in my opinion.
Well, we know that you can transfer a bond.
Yeah.
We learned that early. So that's kind of... It's not unbonding it from the man, but it is unbonding it from the Aes Sedai to pass a bond around. I wasn't surprised by it being done, but I was very disgusted with the fact that it doesn't ever get done. Like, it should have been done many, many times before, and it wasn't.
Yeah, because people break up.
Right, yeah.
Why shouldn't there ever be a case where the Aes Sedai and the warder just don't get along anymore? And both say,
yeah, let's go our separate ways.
Or even he gets super old. I mean, what's about when they get super old? Do the Aes Sedai like suffer through their like late life pains with them? I mean, that's nice, but doesn't seem fitting to them.
I think one time we get an Aes Sedai saying like it would be disrespectful to unbond a warder just to avoid that little bit of pain.
No, that's with respect to taking away the pain after he's died. That's Eben's. That's Daegion talking to Nynaeve because Nynaeve's trying to heal the pain of this of the death severed bond.
Right. And
she says, "You can't take that away from me. That would be disrespectful." But I don't think that she would have be making that argument if it was a matter of like, oh, I can't let this person go because we've gone our separate ways, it would be disrespectful. I don't think she was making that argument.
Yeah, and Murtaugh's making a good point here that, like, during the Trolloc Wars, Aes Sedai just swooped down and picked men and bonded them and compelled them to serve them. Like, it was not...
That's a really good point.
Right. Did they keep them forever? It doesn't make sense.
And
well, maybe they died, but anyway.
And we know that the custom of asking consent is only 400 years old.
Yeah.
And Marana is 111. So, you know, kind of like how we are not that many generations out from segregation here in the US. Like, we are still working through systems and generations of people that very much do not have a problem with the way it used to be done and have a problem with the way it's being done now. And I'm not accusing Marana of, like, being pro randomly catching men and making them your warders, but just the institution only changed 400 years ago, and Aes Sedai live a long time.
Yeah, it's that's what I meant. It's still this property thinking.
She probably knew some Aes Sedai who had bonded their warders.
Right.
Without consent. Like, I'm sure she knew. She was probably taught by Aes Sedai who bonded warders without consent. Like, she absolutely
well,
they
would have been 400 years old at that point, so...
Well, she's 110, so they would have been...
Yeah.
They would have been, like, 280.
Like, going into retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, she was taught when she was young, so...
So I'm saying, like, her teachers at that time probably would have been... The oldest of those teachers would have been those who remembered... Maybe they for their first orders, they bonded just, you know... I mean, it's not like she saw it, but she definitely talked to people who saw it.
Exactly. So it's like her disgust is very academic. Oh, I know this is bad, but like it's easy to just not rock the boat and to pick your battles and to move on because what's done is done.
It's an example of the Great Span, right? So like up until last year, the US was still paying the widow of a soldier from the Civil War.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. What's the story?
Young bride, lived a long time.
Damn. He was 93 and she was 17 when married.
Was 17.
Oh my god. Wow. And he must have been young when he fought in the Civil War too, I'm guessing.
Totally. But like, you know,
Damn.
literally. Yeah.
That marriage is very, very weird, but...
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's weird, but
Ooh.
the Great Span.
The Great Span of Humanity. Yeah, we think of things as being in the past that really aren't. That are happened in our parents' lives or our
pension marriage, yeah. She didn't... It was not a bad decision on her part,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, Murtaugh has a point that, like, you know, we still have World War II vets that were killed and their widows are still alive.
Oh yeah, for sure, but...
My great aunt, my grandmother's younger sister who died a few years ago, she remembered vaguely, but she remembered seeing the Emperor of Germany. So,
and this is all with normal
me
human
about
lifespans. Now increase that to 300.
Well, she died at 102, so...
Well, yeah, so 3 times as long.
It was a bit above, but...
or, you know, or if you're not bound by the oaths, 6 times as long.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and the Aes Sedai as an institution are very hidebound and very tradition-oriented, and they don't change quickly.
And that might be because the individuals don't change quickly.
Right, yeah, it's a very self-fulfilling system. It's very closed.
The White Tower gets compared a lot to the Roman Catholic Church, and that's an institution that's changing, if at all, super slowly. And not only because the people who are in charge are very old, although that also plays a part there, I think. But yeah, old institutions with little to no outside real connections, they don't change.
Yeah, they protect themselves from change, even actively.
Yeah, because once you get in power, you've lived under those rules for so long. Why would you change it now?
Right, it works for you now. I mean, what are you willing to give up?
And that's where Egwene is so radical, because she comes in without any of that sort of indoctrination, having learned a whole different set of rules from a different set of people, and then is given power in like 2 years and isn't indoctrinated. And that allows her to make the changes that she makes.
Mm-hmm. Have the perspective to even suggest them.
Yeah, it's not even that she's young. She's super young, but Swan was young as well. But she never even lived in the tower.
Barely.
For a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
3
I think
months?
it's like a six
6
yeah,
months,
3 to 6
yeah.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, and some time as a prisoner.
Right. It doesn't really
Right,
count,
right,
though.
Added on to that.
But yeah, she's a total outsider, right? She can envision things that the Aes Sedai can't even envision, much less agree with.
And she's super goal driven at this point, right? I mean, she wants to change. She never wants to be part. She wants to change it.
When people say in politics they want an outsider to come in and shake things up, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants that, really.
No. I want to look like I'm making change. I want you to acknowledge that I'm making change. I don't actually want to change.
Why are you calling me out like that?
I thought I was talking to myself, but...
Okay.
Yeah, deep inside, people want the next day to be the same as the day before.
Nin posted a picture in the chat of one of the first integration protests that was happening in the civil rights movement, and I saw a picture about that a while back being like, so some of the women, right, that were screaming at Ruby Bridges or, Hazel Massery, I guess was the woman in this picture. Like, a lot of those people are still voting. Those very same people are still in power. So it's not even a matter of getting their ideas out of the institutions. It's a matter that they are still actively holding them up. So in this case with the bond, theoretically that generational turnover has happened, but the Aes Sedai are much more insulated than any human institution I can actually think of. So,
Except maybe the papal.
okay,
papacy.
fair. Yeah, that actually is a probably fair exception.
And we see the raising of the Amerlin to be a very similar process to raising of a new pope. Mm-hmm. With some analogies with the washing of the feet and some other stuff like that. Like we talked about that during the ceremony. But I think the best analogy we have for the White Tower and the Amerlin seat in our modern day is the Catholic Church and the Pope.
I just had a thought. How many Amerlins do you think were Wilders versus whatever the antithesis of a Wilder is?
I'm guessing a lot because those Wilders tend to have the spark and they tend to be the most powerful.
Okay, I was just wondering if if Egwene was pulling a first Wilder Amerlin sort of situation.
I
but
seriously doubt it.
Actually, I
To me
think-
feels like a more
yeah.
modern prejudice.
yeah, I think that Swan actually even mentions that some of the best Amerlins were Wilders. I think that she says that. But even if she didn't, I think you guys are right.
In context, it makes sense that powerful channelers tend to be Wilders because they tend to have the spark.
Right, yeah.
And they tend to then be more powerful channelers also tend to be
I'm nodding.
Amerlin seats. And so you have these two tendencies that seem like, yeah, it'd be really hard not to have a decent number of Wilders. And also it's like one of those things that it doesn't seem like it doesn't really change your standing at all in White Tower Society.
Right, only for the particularly prejudiced sisters. But
Right.
it's not actually an institutional boundary.
No, you're probably quite high because you're probably quite strong, and maybe spend less time as novice because you didn't take all that time to learn to embrace the source, right?
Right. Good point.
They could be the other way though, that you have to spend extra time learning to break your block, and that keeps you as a novice
Okay.
longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
then you're
it
really,
could-
really adaptable once you've gotten through that, so you're very, very highly ranked for your abilities as a sister.
I think that the cases of those blocks that need to be broken by weird measures are not that common. I think most of them have one, but they seem to be minor most of the time. Because in the beginning, all they keep doing is telling Nynaeve to do the novice exercises, so it seems like that usually does the trick. And it takes them a while to realize, no, we have to think of those other cases, about the case of the one who could only channel when the man was present. And
Yeah, I'd love to see more examples of warder blocks. We don't get that many. We get people who she was a warder. Wilder.
Wilder.
But we don't get very many examples of Wilder blocks. Like we really only have one or two besides Nynaeve's.
Yeah.
Galena beat the block out of.
Keeping her eyes closed out of Vara or somebody.
Yeah,
Right.
but she was just beaten until it was broken. So
Yeah. And by a dark sister, a black sister, so, it takes away from the argument a bit there. Or not takes away from it, but it takes away from the validity of that as a method.
What, you don't like the method of beating people till they do that what you want?
the fact that Nynaeve is so stubborn possibly plays a role.
Possibly.
Also, she's much older. She's been channeling for much longer than like 95% of Aes Sedai who ever learned to channel, right? Because usually they wouldn't take her.
Right, she's too old.
Yeah, Nynaeve's just special every way you slice it. Yeah, and it makes a good point. People did beat education into people in schools throughout history. That has been an acceptable method of...
Yeah, or writing with your left hand or stuff like that.
Or stuttering, or talking back, anything like that. Beating has been considered an appropriate disciplinary measure. And we know that Robert Jordan and the White Tower both have a thing about spankings. So...
Speaking of the Catholic Church again.
Yeah.
And church is beating the shit out of... Well, nuns beating the shit out of people with rulers and shit like that as disciplines. Like,
I'm very happy that no spanking comes up in this chapter, because the attitude in the whole Wheel of Time towards corporal punishment for everything would get me into a tangent that would probably last a while. So...
Left hand writing, that's a beating.
Yeah.
Talking out of line, that's a beating. Not believing in God, that's a beating.
Yeah, my mom is ambidextrous because she was aggressively discouraged from being left-handed.
My mother as well is a left-hander.
It's bullshit. Wow, us and Nin? Okay, how many people in the Wheel of Time spoilers community have left-handed mothers who were forced into ambidextrosity?
That is a word.
Ambidextrosity. What a word. Can it...
I have no idea if it is a word.
Use that in Scrabble and you win.
Ambidextrosity. I like making up words. I don't know if it's a word.
We need a list of Aradia-isms. Which is also a made-up word.
I'm not in charge of that. I have enough to deal with tracking already.
Shall we go back, to the chapter thing?
We're on page 2 and an hour and 13 minutes of recording. It's great. It's
only 4 pages, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's mostly what Miranda does. She thinks about strength level, then she thinks about Alana, and then she thinks about Varen and Alana, how they fit into her group, and that they don't, and that she will probably get kicked out of it, which will happen.
I love her idea of taking Moraine's place with Rand. I'm just like...
I know, right?
I wondered about that. What does she mean? Does she think as an advisor, or does she think there's something...
I always thought, just as the Aes Sedai advisor, all kings have Aes Sedai advisors.
Yeah. Because she's not green, that's why.
Yeah,
Green, I would like...
No, she does really mean exactly Moraine's place, but it's just you are so underqualified. Sit down.
Yeah, of course she means exactly Moraine's place, but how do they even know what Moraine did when he was with Rand?
Well, clearly she was very in control all the time. Obviously.
Mm-hmm. Obviously. All of his good moves were clearly at her direction.
Yep.
And he did everything she said.
She could play the part that Moraine played in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, go stand outside until you calm down.
Of doing exactly what he says.
Yeah. We've also got Miranda being super, hilariously culturally ignorant in this, because she assumes that Rand holding the carved piece of Shan-Chan's spear is an Aiel custom. And it's totally not. It's this thing that Rand, made up on the fly because Taviran, something Taviran. And she's just looking at that being
well, it's a spear. Aiel have spear. It's fair.
Yeah, she's so arrogant. I'm aren't you an ambassador? Have a little more cultural sensitivity, please. No doubt it's an Aiel custom. Those savages. I get major savages vibes off of her in that. It's just oh my god, sit down and think about your life decisions, Miranda, please.
No, she will, and it's not going to go well.
I know, right? And the next thing I wanted to ask you two was, why is Alana so dreamy? Is there more to it than just Rand has nice eyebrows? Is there something about the bond and Rand getting all LTT, spiraled out that's sucking her attention away?
The only conclusion I've been able to come to is that she just lost her last warder, and she's still very much grieving over him, and sort of that combined with this new order and her just general personality is leading to her just being constantly distracted by what's going on in her own head.
I wondered about the term dreamy as well. I think she's more not quite there. I don't think that she's enamored with the idea of Rand at that moment, because she, at the same time, she obviously sees that she's fucked up because she asked them, so I have not ruined everything. Well.
Right.
And when they say yes, then she's okay, fine. which I want to slap her again.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw that line and was like, is like Rand's madness like actually a serious attention distraction for her? Or is she just, going through a lot and getting lost in that? Which, you guys making a good argument. She's just going through a lot.
And she mentions the pain as well, right? So.
Oh, yeah. Dwelling on his Jesus wound.
So maybe her eyes just glaze over because she's in pain secondhand?
Maybe.
I also wondering if she's maybe getting some side effects of Rand's insanity, like some of his craziness is not necessarily she's also getting crazy, but she's getting like these weird feelings from him that don't make any sense.
Well, but the other three don't do that. They get stuff from him, but it makes sense most of the time.
Yeah, they know him better.
Yeah.
And isn't that all? Yeah.
She's still getting used to having him as a warder, right? And he's a very unique warder. The other three don't have much to compare against. I mean, Elaine's got Brigida, but like, Alana kind of thinks she knows what having a warder is like, and Rand is an entirely different like kettle of fish. So maybe that too, just trying to get used to the bond and what it means to have the dragon reborn at the other end.
I think Alana is just super impulsive and getting yanked around. Her water just died, so she's crying all the time, and then Varen basically takes her over.
Yeah.
Makes her go there, go here, and now she's with this embassy where she thinks that they will be super mad at her, and she probably doesn't know whether they are supposed to belong to them, whether they are supposed to go to the Salidar Aes Sedai or the Tower Aes Sedai, because that's obviously Varen's decision. She doesn't have any agency at this point. Because I think Varen had her under control very well before that, and after the forced bonding, Varen has like a very, very strong thumb on her.
Yeah.
How strong? Do you think it's a compulsion thumb?
I don't think so. I don't think she needs to.
Agreed. I think she's using good old-fashioned being 300 years older than Alana.
I think she absolutely would, but why she doesn't need to. Yeah, she's like 100 years older than Alana, and the woman is obviously not the most rational being in the world.
It's true.
Very true. Missouri not believing that Rand actually knows when they're channeling is one of my favorite.
Oh my!
I'd love to see her embrace it and him be like, turn around and be like, let the fuck go of it right now.
And remember when Matt does that to the sea folk later because of them having the medallion?
Yeah.
And it's just like there's two instances of women not expecting men to be able to tell they can channel, and in both instances it's like they can. With Rand, at least, there's no excuse. With Matt, I mean, there's some excuse, because that's a pretty random thing.
It's so unfair, though.
It is. It is. I've never understood it.
And I don't really understand why it is a one-way street.
Well, why can't men bond?
Because usually it's all about balance, right? But what do they women get that the men don't?
Boobs.
From the power.
I don't know. I'm guessing that it's some sort of comment on how, like, women are distractingly sexy kind of energy, and it's like men are just the standard, and then women are like men but with like extra cool things, and so like men need some sort of like.
On the other hand, the trope should have been women are more perceptive. So maybe it's a commentary on that.
I know I think Robert Jordan's trying to find a way to flip it all inside and out, but I don't think it worked.
No. I tried to find the balance for that, and I can't. If it were something like men can feel when women are embracing the source of channeling, but women can block men easier or something like that, I would have accepted that.
Yeah, I guess women can see the power around each other, which men can't do. Men can't see the power around each other.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it's less about the interaction between the genders and more about what you get within the gender.
Okay.
Maybe? I don't know. I'm not happy with it, but...
That Saidin is just more perceptible externally, whereas Saidar is more internal. And so that, like, both women and men can sense when women are channeling, but...
Yeah, this doesn't work with boobs. You have to go with dick and uterus now.
So, or maybe it's like men bottle up their emotions, and it's like a comment on toxic masculinity, because like men have no idea what each other are feeling, but they can always tell what women are feeling because women actually emote.
Oh, it's just like the emotions surrounding them?
But no, you never know what a woman does think or whatever. Ever.
I forgot.
Haven't you not read the
I
book?
forgot about that canonical requirement.
Yeah, I certainly can't understand. I think that's required. Is my understanding of what women are doing is completely
No, Seth, those are people.
people. Oh, okay.
If you think about it, I assure you, you're as often confused about men as you are about women.
Yeah, I just don't care what men think, so it doesn't bother me.
Right.
Yep.
It's every time somebody says, "Oh, there's this adage about men and women," and people are like, "Yeah, that's so true." It's also true if you reverse it or if you just say people. It's like with horoscopes. It's because people are weird. All these things are true.
Well, it's like when I think both genders in this book are always like, "Oh, the women gossip so much," and then the response is the men gossip so much, and it's like, yeah, people gossip. That's what it is. It's just people
Exactly.
gossiping.
People like
Exactly.
talking. It's a thing we do.
There's a little bit of pointless gendered.
And men are so stubborn.
Yeah.
And women are so stubborn.
Right? Yeah. You mean people are stubborn?
Next thing I have is that Varen is sipping her tea and watching.
Oh yeah.
She's just sitting
Every
back
time
like,
Varen drinks tea, you're like,
I know. And she's got a smudge of ink on her nose in this scene. She's just tilting her head in that bird-like way and just casually cutting into the conversation and asking questions that slowly chip away at Marana's control, and then just sitting back and let Marana continuing to drive until she like wants to tweak the model a little bit again. She's just like such a puppet master, and I love her so much.
I also have to wonder if she's keeping an eye out for Dark Friends.
Totally, definitely. She wants to fade into the background and just take
she goes
notes.
back to her book.
Yeah.
Because she, as far as we know, she knows that none of these women are Dark Friends pretty accurately.
I would assume.
Or at least none of them are on her list, right? Not for sure, but
Well, not for sure. She says she says she probably missed people, but
Right. So far, none of them are on her list, and she knows
none
that.
of them are verified Dark Friends, at least.
exactly. And it seems like she was correct. I just wanted to ask Aurelia, because I think she's the closest to a Varen type as I have here. Why do you get ink on your nose? I get ink on your fingers, but you scratch everything else. Why is it always the nose?
Because you go to like scratch next to your nose and you're still holding the pencil and your nose sticks out. And so then the end of the pencil or the pen hits the nose as you're bringing your hand up and away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how.
I literally wondered about that several times in my life, because it's a trope too. And I was wondering, why the nose? Yes, then I'm asking the key questions.
When I work, I'm writing, and I reach up, and what I do is I wipe from the corner of my eye down my nose, just like, or like I pinch the bridge of my nose and wipe down, and that's just a very like common gesture for me, and that always leaves a smudge on my nose.
Okay.
I notice especially when I'm like doing something messy like pottery or like starting a fire and I get charcoal, I almost always end up with a smudge on my nose. Always.
I usually get smudges on my forehead because at one point or the other I will put back my hair or something.
Yeah, I think it just has to do with personal habits and stuff like that. Like, where do you touch your face?
And
But
like
I
how
generally
you
touch my
hold
nose.
your writing utensils, or like, how you mind getting mess on your hands. Because like some people really don't want to get like anything on their hands, and some people are like, I don't mind having stuff get spotted up to my elbows, and it's
And bringing up left-handers again, like left-handers often have dirty hands when they're writing because they drag their hands across the ink, as opposed to right-handers.
Sure, but
so frustrating.
but you get the edge of your hand inky, and getting that to your nose. I'm doing it right now. It's a bit of a hassle to get the outside of your left hand on your nose.
I'm not sitting here at my desk holding my pen and like bringing it up to my face and figuring out how this might possibly work. I'm not doing that right now.
I've been touching my face in the last 2 minutes more than you ever should during a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, fewer smudges on my nose since the pandemic, definitely.
Oh yeah, masks help.
Although, I have to wonder if Varen didn't artfully apply the smudge on purpose.
Oh, she definitely did.
Yes.
Definitely. She is trying so hard to go under the radar right now. That was on purpose. And in that case, you do it with a...
I imagine Varen applies the smudges in the morning like people apply makeup and eyeshadow.
Yeah, I can tell you that when you're putting on Varen's makeup for SpoilerCon, you put it on with liquid mascara. that's how one puts the smudge on one's nose. Pro tip.
Okay.
Brandon was like, you have something on your nose. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's part of the costume. Because I literally have done that with my mascara, or not my mascara, my eyeliner. It literally has happened to me before.
Good on him for telling you.
Yeah, it was really sweet. I'm like, no.
And I wondered for a moment how liquid mascara works.
Yeah, I did not mean mascara. I meant liquid eyeliner because I know how makeup words work.
That makes a lot more sense.
That neither one makes any sense to me. So okay.
Okay, I mascara goes on your eyelashes. Eyeliner goes along the line where your eyelashes come out of your eyes.
Those are different.
Okay, eyelashes.
Mascara is a little brush with which you color hair. You could do it on your head too, or in your beard, but you use it for your lashes.
Yeah, I thought you just took that little brush. Okay, yeah, no, I thought you took that little brush.
Yeah, and then there's you can get a pencil or like a paintbrush for the eyeliner. It's like the cat eye, that was like...
Yeah, I'm deliberately being a little obtuse here. I understand all that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't, apparently. So I need to prove that I do very, very thoroughly so that I don't lose my girl cred because it's in debate.
We have to send you all to Liana for a while and she will...
Oh, yep. She'll get you all ready for face paints. I always like it when they call it face paints and not makeup.
I know, right? I'm like...
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Do you wonder if they use lead powder in the Wheel of Time makeup?
It's always funny which words are acceptable within a fantasy setting and which are not.
Like makeup is not acceptable in any fantasy.
Oh, like the
it's
Tiffany
totally arbitrary, but somehow we agree because there are so many words which are based on like historical stuff which shouldn't work. For example, I don't think it's in a Wheel of Time, but in Stormlight, for example, people use cologne all the time, which is funny for me because I live in the city of Cologne, after which this was named. So I'm very aware of the fact that they would never, ever, ever call it that. It's not a criticism. I mean, it's not a bad thing because if you apply etymology to every word, then it would never work. And I think you should always go the Tolkien route of, I have been translating this.
Right. Whatever books I read in English, I assume are translated from the native fantasy language.
Yeah, but still there are words that are not allowed to be in there. Like in many fantasy worlds, usual swear words. You need to put mother's milk in a cup there.
Right. Yeah, no, it's one of the few things in the Broken Earth that breaks me out of the immersion is there's Arctics and Antarctics, but there's no mention of bears anywhere in the world. And Arctic and Antarctic literally are about a circle within which there are or are not bears. Like, that's the root of the word. So I'm like, there's no bears in this world, but we still have a word about bears. It's funny. Or like I read about, the Tiffany problem, where the name Tiffany sounds super modern. So you can't put it in fantasy, but apparently it actually is contemporary to periods in which one might set fantasy. It just sounds wrong for some bizarre reason.
Tiffany is a protagonist in some Terry Pratchett books, so I am totally fine with using it.
Yeah, apparently it often doesn't get applied to modern fantasy, but it's in the documents of the periods in question, so it's not actually anachronistic.
Well, then there's the question is fantasy medieval? Or is it, and that's sort of where we started of like, oh, well, medieval times is fantasy, but like, that's not the case anymore. Like, that is really not the case anymore.
Not even in Wheel of Time.
No, definitely not.
Very rarely is it actually medieval because medieval times are boring.
And miserable.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's dying and stuff from...
Right. Well, and yeah, the whole like castle and sword
being
and castle
dirty.
type
Yes,
thing.
being a peasant.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm super aware of what you mean. But it doesn't matter. But at the same time, it's funny to think, why is this word allowed?
Right.
Yeah. Those choices are funny.
And yeah, makeup is not, so it's face paints.
No, and like high heels is not, heeled boots is.
Do they have any type of cologne or something, or do they just say scents or something?
Perfume.
They use perfume, yeah. Even the men call
They
it
say perfume. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or scented, just like scented oils, scented baths, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's the herbal soap.
Yeah.
The herbal. That sounds as if it smells awesome, though.
Yeah, it does. Varen describing Rand as a wolf on a leash 1 thread thick, which I find poetically perfect.
All the thread does is tell you what direction he's in, pretty much.
Yeah, right.
I like this. I may yet be able to make him accept me. No, there's no way, Alana.
Yeah, no, you're not, Alana. No. Not until after he goes through, like, veins of gold and is just accepting of everything.
Yeah, and they're freaking out about the amnesty, of course, because they're freaking out about the men in the Black Tower, which I can't fault them.
From every POV, everyone's like, well, it can't be that big of a deal. We'll deal with it later. And by the time later happens, it's a big deal.
Yeah, that is just hilarious.
That's very realistic.
You know, it's like ignoring a problem until it grows too big to take care of.
Has never happened ever.
Nope, doesn't happen. Nope.
Mm-mm.
And part of it is that Rand is basically being, come over here and look at me, and that gives the Black Tower a chance to thrive without being attacked. In the previous age, if anyone else had said, come on in, I'm starting up a Black Tower, it would have been shut down super fast, but Rand has the resources to support it and distract everybody else. And the clout to let people be like, okay, well, if the Dragon Reborn says it, he's doing a thing, then I'll join it. Whereas, no, I wouldn't do it for a king or a queen or anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a unique situation that allows Rand to create the Black Tower when he does, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you're right. By ignoring the Black Tower, he protects them from certain kinds of attack, the way that he protects the Two Rivers by turning his back on it. He's like, no, look over here, look at me, don't look at all the awesome stuff happening behind you, focus on me. Even though we criticize him for abandoning the Black Tower, like, he can do so many things in the day. Being distracting is easy.
And think about it, like, it's the White Tower and the Rebel Aes Sedai are both sending embassies to him, and are both saying the same thing of, well, we have to deal with this Rand al'Thor first, and then this silly Black Tower thing will go away later. Yeah. So I like the idea that his sort of arrogance and attention-getting skills is allowing, you know, background stuff to happen. And that he thinks about that he's not just abandoning them totally. He's actually, like, making a play. Now, obviously, it opens them up to the whole Dark Friend takeover thing. But, yeah, you know, like you said, he can only do so many things in a day. And, unfortunately, a lot of them are brooding about LTT in his head, so... And how much he's ruined Avienda, apparently. And Min, how terrible he is with women.
Yeah, and I think now it's more that, oh no, I was confused about Elaine and Avienda, now I'm confused about Min too.
Boy problems. Girl problems.
Yeah, so relatable. Who hasn't had that problem?
I love the realism of the fact that he's dealing with, like, the end of the world, and at least half his attention is on girls.
It's like, he's still human, you know?
He's still human, exactly. And I like that about Rand. I like that about his writing. It's what makes him a good character, you know?
He's still barely an adult, too.
Yeah.
And very unexperienced.
Yeah, if he could actually set aside all of these human considerations and heart problems, he would be a very unbelievable hero to root for.
Well, no, he does that for a while later, and then he's not unbelievable, but unbelievably scary.
Yeah, and everyone wants to smack him. Everyone gets mad at him for being so difficult to root for, and then he gets over it, and it's better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then he nearly destroys the world, and then he ascends to godhood or something.
I mean, trauma will do that to you, apparently. And then he has to go to therapy on top of his own gravesite, because that's how that works.
So what do you think about this statement from Marana about Rand and the bonding, where if it had made him biddable, she would have held her nose and her tongue? Like, if...
Yeah, I get it.
Isn't that worse? Like, if the rape made him pliable and, like, I don't
yes,
like
it
at
is
all.
worse, but it is a end of the world, very special case. I give her a little bit of... I get it. I think it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, the analogy I'm bringing up is that, you know, in the old timies, men would rape women that they wanted to marry and then be like, oh, she's spoiled, I have to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, that's sort of what Alana did to Rand. She raped him and then said, well, we have to get married now. And he said, no. No, we're not. And here's Marana being like, well, if you had raped him and he'd gotten married and you had him under your control, I would appreciate it. But since you raped him and didn't marry him, it's bad. And it's like, dude, no, not the point.
I think that happened a lot. Exactly what you described there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it does. And it shouldn't.
Nope.
It shouldn't.
I think what she means is if this were something to help prevent the end of the world, then I could overlook it.
Yeah, but that's also from their perspective.
Kat Swain makes a similar argument later. She actually makes the exact same argument that, not the same argument, but a similar argument that, like, if it hadn't been done by Alana, she would have seriously considered doing it herself in an effort to, again, help save things for the end of the world. And it's a good argument, but it's real hard to say that there is a justified time to rape someone. So, there's that.
But what if they hold the world in their hands and raping them could let you control them, and then you could hold the power of the world in your hands? Doesn't that make it better? Oh, right. No, it doesn't.
It's such a nasty argument.
Ooh.
Ugh. Yeah, it's it's unfortunate that we have so many Aes Sedai signing on to that rationale.
I have to say that I'm not a big fan of the rape analogy there. For me, it's more like enslavement, mental enslavement.
Fair.
But
There's emotional intimacy to the bonding, though. Like, that's even more close than a physical one. Like, you feel the other person's emotions.
Yeah,
constantly.
but that doesn't... Well, emotional intimacy doesn't make it closer to rape for me.
Forced emotional intimacy, like...
The bond, it feels kind of like if you were, like, to go back to the earlier analogy we made about, like, paternity rights going to a rapist. It's kind of like that. Like, Rand, by getting bonded, is, like, pregnant, right?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier, I think, yeah. Uh-huh.
And so it's like, she's like, well, I have rights to you now as a result of that. And that's... no, you don't. Violating my rights doesn't give you the right to keep violating them.
And I'd like to sort of the bonding is a combination of a rape and enslavement, right? And Rand was raped but not enslaved because he was able to resist the compulsion.
Well, but he has her in his head.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then there's, like, what Egwene went through was, like, just enslavement that she was able to escape in the magical sense, if not in the emotional sense.
Yeah, and then we have later the Korsuvra stuff, which...
Yeah. Yeah. Which that goes beyond even, like, power stuff. That gets into weird soul stuff with the Dark One.
This goes beyond everything. This is, like...
But yeah, it's the whole way that Marana just pearl clutches for the sake of respectability and then passes it over, and then Cat Swain does the same thing. It's just, like, not okay, ladies.
They're very means and justify people.
These two institutions are just in bad shape with traditions, and, like, you can see it. Like, all of the traditional Aes Sedai are entirely okay with that because it's tradition. It's like, oh yeah, that's a tradition of what we do is force bonding, and, like, we don't do it anymore, but
Right. Same way, like, oh yeah, we totally are a meritocracy, but also we use our dicks to measure who's in charge.
Right.
It's all part and parcel of how much they need Egwene to come in and shake them up and reorder them.
It's a meritocracy. It's a dickritocracy, is what it is.
Yes.
I thought it was about boobs.
I mean, pick a body part, we can measure it.
A boobtocracy.
Boobocracy.
Tits.
Boobocracy.
Aww.
And so then, I think we're done with Morena, and we get a POV switch to what the rest of the Aes Sedai are doing in Andor, and they appear to be manipulating other nobles.
Can I just point out one thing from the last perspective? Marana is also problematic in the part where she's like, the agreements were broken eventually and treaties violated was the nature of humanity. We can't expect people to hold true to their treaties. They're just gonna break them. Why are you a Grey if you think that?
I think she means overtime there.
Oh, maybe.
Even though treaties eventually break, it's worth it for the peace in the meantime.
Yeah. That's how I see it too.
I guess I've just been reading a lot about the history of the United States with respect to indigenous people lately.
Oh,
and,
fun.
Yeah, this line right here just makes all of me cringe really, really hard. Because, you just write treaties and break them. Like, that's the entire history of the United States.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what she means. I think she means we can set up a system, but, 2 generations later, everybody will do something else. But we can't stop that. Let's do the best we can now. That's how I read it.
That's fair. It just felt very prescient with what I've been reading in the nonfiction department lately, so I had to point it out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Aes Sedai see much longer cycles than most political systems and individuals involved. So it makes sense that she has that sort of bird's eye perspective.
And she's saying the Fifth Treaty of Falma was her only real failure, which is saying the other ones, even though they didn't last, were actually successes, even if just temporary.
Right.
Fair.
Yeah. And not only that she lives a long time, she probably studies this stuff. So she has the bird's eye view over the history.
All of history, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. Okay, that's all I needed to.
And she's probably right that there's not a treaty that has never been broken at one point or the other.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any idea what the Fifth Treaty of Falma is? Do we ever get any more context on that? Timing?
It was 46 years ago, and it took 3 years to negotiate. We got that much.
So what was going on 43 years ago?
All right, come on.
I look into Companion. What? If I can find it. The Fifth Treaty of Falmouth says, a treaty negotiated by Marana intended to stop the squabbling between Artaman and Tarabon over Amherst Plain. In the end, she felt as if she had been rolled downhill in a barrel, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't say anything else.
Same on the wiki.
It
was about Almouth Plain. That's all it's really about. And we know that at the time of the books, Almouth Plain is kind of a no man's country space.
And we could maybe think that there have been 4 others before that.
Yes, one could infer that.
Or at least 4 attempts.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that too, yeah. So you wanted to talk, about the 3 nobles.
And this is the part that I thought was Elida's Aes Sedai until this time.
Yeah.
Literally every other time I've read this, I just sort of blazed over the names and like my eyes glazed, and I thought it was Elida's Aes Sedai. I was so wrong. These are all Saladar Aes Sedai.
I think it's very confusing that we spent the whole chapter with these women in the coach and then in the room, and then we have 3 which are not mentioned before. So that's a mean trick on you. But I think they probably went to more of them, but they were picked very specifically, I think, because Dylan is one who sides with Elaine, Luan is one who sits it out at first, and Alorian is one who doesn't.
Alorian's the one that has to be convinced.
Well, she's the last one. Like, in the end, she's still snippy, but she goes to, like, a play with Elaine, so they probably will make up.
Yeah, she's the one that Elaine actually has to work on. Everyone else kind of follows Dylan or Alorian. And Luan is kind of the representative.
Morgay said Alorian switched because she said something possibly about her being with Ravin, I think.
And then, like, asked why. I think she was switched for the audacity to ask why she was being exiled or something. It was Ravin. Mm-hmm. It was just a bunch of Ravin mess.
Yeah. It was Morgay's not being able to hold accountable for her actions, I think.
Yeah.
At that point.
All of these nobles were treated poorly by Ravin and Morgase. All 3 of the ones that these Aes Sedai talked to.
I think Dylan probably wasn't. I think Dylan is one of these people who gets along with everybody except Birgitte.
Yeah, did Dylan leave?
No, I don't think so. I think she stayed in the background wisely. She's a fascinating character, actually, because she's one of the few people who really don't want to get into power, and not only says she doesn't want to, she actively fights for not becoming the queen, even though it would have been the easiest way for everybody.
Yeah, but she's the high seat of her house. She has all the power she wants. Like, that's the struggle with all the Andorran nobles, right? Is no one actually wants to be queen except for the snippy little princess, whatever, Aramilla.
Nah, I don't think so. I think they all kind of want to, but they have a little more realistic outlook.
That's fair. So I'm trying to...
I like Dylan, and I like that she's the biggest red herring ever. I think everybody thinks that she has to be some kind of enemy agent or working against Elaine or whatever, because she's just too good for her. And then she just is.
I always think of her as that aunt who's like really realizes the potential more so than the mother does, and is like, yeah, encourages the kids and gets them out there, and like, you know, Dylan's like, oh yeah, I've made all those mistakes and I don't want to do it again, but I'm gonna help you not fuck up the way I fucked up, you know?
Okay, so what wiki is saying that she did leave? She did leave Camelin, because Rand invites her back after he kicks Ravin out. So Dylan totally bailed when she saw what was happening. She didn't get exiled, but she definitely exited stage left.
She just went to her estates and
Yeah.
cared for her roses or something.
Yeah, and then Rand invites her back to talk about bringing Elaine in. And then Rand gets kidnapped, and she declares herself regent in Elaine's name.
I have a question, though. What do the Aes Sedai want from them?
I think that they're trying to make sure that Elaine will be safe to come back to Camelin.
That makes sense, because at first I thought, well, obviously they want to, establish their part of the tower. But they don't talk about that. They only talk about the succession. But when they think that Elaine belongs to them, maybe that's, the same thing, but once removed.
And also, Tylan doesn't appear in any books until Lord of Chaos, so it's not like we see her when Ravine is around at all.
Right, yeah, no, she doesn't get mentioned at all.
Yeah. I thought she was just staying back, but she stayed back outside the city.
Yeah, the Watwiki's not telling
No
me
drama
much
was
at all.
mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. There was no drama. She somehow, maybe she was not in the city when Ravine showed up and then decided not to return or something like that.
She just, maybe she just snoped out up there.
Yeah, because the Saladar plan is to get Rand out of Camelin so that they can set it up to get Elaine Aes Sedai as quickly as possible and then installed on the throne. So they're, I think, making sure that there is enough political support that if they try to put Elaine in there, they won't throw Andor into civil war. They're making sure that Dylan isn't going to try to be queen because don't fight that. And, I think that that's all this is.
Okay.
I'm nodding. I think that
It's so vague.
it feels very similar to the Camelin Aes Sedai trying to set up a puppet, but except they're doing it according to Rand's wishes. It's just weird, but because it is very much exactly the same thing. It's saying, when Rand leaves, we want this person to be queen. The difference is, the Tower Aes Sedai are going to kidnap him.
And install someone he doesn't want on the throne.
Doesn't want,
Okay, you mean the same as the Kyrian.
Exactly.
Oh my god, these
Yeah.
names.
Sorry, yeah, the Tower Aes Sedai
okay.
and Kyrian are doing a very similar thing to the Rebel Aes Sedai and Camelin. It's when Rand leaves is a very different statement from the two of them.
Right.
Aradia, how could you ever confuse those?
There's a lot of names.
Names are hard, okay?
Yeah, but I can see why Rand distrusts both groups equally, because they're doing nearly identical stuff. Even the stuff he doesn't see is nearly identical.
Come on, maybe he confuses them. He jumps back and forth. Who says that he keeps them straight?
See, I'm going to blame Rand for my confusion. Yes, exactly.
Right.
I'm following Rand around. He's confused, I'm confused, we're all confused.
And that's something Robert Jordan does, right? He confuses you along with the protagonist, so...
Very much so.
He loves to do that. It's the whole road with Rand sickness, channeling sickness.
My Lord of Chaos reread was a while ago, but every time I'm on a Lord of Chaos reread, I forget where he gets kidnapped, if it's in Camelin or in Kyrian, and I forget when. So every time he's in one of those cities and there are any Aes Sedai around, I'm like, is this the time? And then, no, Egwene is there. Or is she? No, Egwene's... Min is there. Wait, is Min there?
Yeah.
There are so many scenes where he's sitting... Yeah, where he's sitting on the throne and some Aes Sedai come in. How often does that happen? Like,
A lot.
30 times at least.
Yeah.
And I'm every time, oh, is he being stuffed in the box?
I often think this book is more about misdirection by Robert Jordan than anything else.
Agreed.
Anna, would you like to read us out?
I can't do that. I just closed my book, but I can... Yeah, okay. My worry is Elaine, Dylan said firmly. The more firmly for being alone in the sitting room with an Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai could press hard if you weakened when you were alone, especially when no one else knew you were alone with her. Kyrian Sedai smiled, but neither smile nor cool blue eyes gave away anything. It is quite possible the daughter heir will yet be found to sit on the Lion Throne. What may seem unsurmountable to others is seldom so to Aes Sedai. The Dragon Reborn says, Men say many things, Lady Dylan, but you know, I do not lie. Luan patted the tyrant stallion's grey neck, looking both ways in case one of the grooms came into the stables, and barely dodged a bite from wicked teeth. Rafella's warder would give warning, but Luan was not sure he trusted anyone of late, especially not with a visit of this sort. I'm not sure I understand, he said curtly. Unity is better than division, Rafella said. Peace better than war, patience better than death. Luan's head jerked as the odd end to the platitudes, and the round-faced Aes Sedai smiled. Will Andor not be better off if Rand al'Thor leaves the land in peace and unity, Lord Luan? Holding her robe shut, Elorian stared at the Aes Sedai who had managed to reach her in her bath without being announced, possibly without being seen. The coppery-skinned woman looked back from the stool on the other side of the marble tub full of water, as though this were all natural and ordinary. Who, Elorian asked finally, would have the line thrown then, Demira Sedai? The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, was the reply, and Elorian knew she would get no other.
Nice. Yeah, no, reading, it's hard.
I'm quite good at reading, but reading in a different language is another thing.
I'm so impressed with your ability to do that.
I can barely read in English. So.
Right? That's me.
Man, I tell you what, I made the mistake of sharing a bottle of Cook's Brute with somebody last night.
Oh dear.
I have no idea what that is, but it sounds dangerous.
The cheapest champagne you can get your hands on.
Oh. Yeah.
Headachy.
The headaches are brutal.
Oh. I'm hurting. I'm hurting right now. I haven't had champagne in years and years and years, and I was like, sure, I'll try some. I had like 2 glasses. I have not. I got up in the middle of the night. I was sick. I am hungover. I have a headache, and I am extremely surprised.
Oof! I'd only 2 glasses. Yikes!
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. No, it hit me hard.
Now I feel really bad for the time that you have to do this.
That's fair. I have gotten really messed up on that champagne, but I usually drink an entire bottle to myself in the course of an evening, and that's when I get fucked up.
There's just so much sweetness and stuff to it.
Oh, I know. See, now I really don't like it. Normally, getting hungover from something doesn't turn me off from it, but 3 times back to back, drinking too much of cheap champagne, I can't. Every time I taste it now, it just tastes bitter and awful.
I think that's where I'm going to be next time it comes out.
Right? Yeah, champagne's great. Just get good stuff.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?